This is Rowan's Castle Adventure. Lucy and the unicorn hadn't had a holiday for ages. He was worried that something might frighten the fairies if he went away, but now Ogron, the monster fairy, had come to stay, Lucian knew the little ones would be safe, so he began to plan his holiday. Rowan Elizabeth knew where he wanted to go, and sure enough Lucian said, "I am planning to go back to England, to visit the castle where I grew up." Rowan said, "It's a very long way from California to England, Lucian." But Lucian said, "It will take me a few hours, not as quick as Galloper, but much faster than an aeroplane." Rowan said, "I enjoyed visiting the fairy castle. I'd like to go again sometime." "Well then," said Lucian, "give me a day or two to recover from the flying, and then ask Galloper to bring you over in your dreams, and I'll meet you." So, a few days later, Lucian and Rowan stood together in the courtyard of the fairy castle. Rowan said, "There's something I've been meaning to ask you. The king and queen and princesses are all fairies, aren't they? But they don't have any wings." Lucian smiled. "Any fairy creature can have wings if they want, and garden fairies usually like to have them. But the royal ones think they get in the way of their fancy uniforms and dresses, so they usually do without." "But does that mean they can't fly?" "No, they can fly perfectly well without wings if they want to, but I suppose they think they are too grand to fly like ordinary fairies." Rowan said, "How can they fly without wings?" Lucian laughed. "You and I do it all the time, don't we? All you have to do is make yourself very light, and then you can fly like a dandelion seed." Rowan thought for a moment. "Does that mean that Ogron could fly, if he wanted to?" Lucian shook his head. "No, Ogron's rather special. He's very big and heavy, and he doesn't really believe he could fly. It would take some very strong magic to get Ogron into the air. But I don't think he minds very much. He's so tall he can still play chasing and catching with the fairies, even with both feet on the ground." Rowan wasn't quite so sure. She thought Ogron would like to fly. But there was something else puzzling her about the castle. "Lucian, where is everybody? I thought castles were full of people, servants and soldiers and cooks and gardeners and things. But there are only the king and queen, the princesses here. Where has everybody gone?" Lucian said, "You're thinking of real castles in your world. They needed lots of servants to deal with all the food. There were hunters and cooks and serving maids, as well as all the kitchen staff that did the washing up and tidying. But fairies don't eat very much, so there's no need for all those servants. That's part of the answer." "Okay," Rowan said. "What else is wrong?" "It's what the Princess Felicia would call a deficiency of the exchequer. In other words, they've run out of money, so they can't afford to pay servants and staff." "But I thought kings and queens were very rich." "And so they are, or at least they were when I lived here. But it's all changed now. Maybe I should let the wizard explain." "The wizard?" said Rowan. "Yes, his name is Magister Elevatus, but everyone calls him Mr. Magus. He lives in a room at the top of the highest tower." It was a long way up, on cold stone stairs that went round and round, but eventually they reached the top. Rowan had never met a wizard before, but when she saw him he looked exactly like a fairy wizard ought to look, with a starry cloak, a pointy hat, and a white beard. "Hello, my dear," he said. "I'm pleased to meet you. Any friend of Lucian's is a friend of mine."
Hello, Mr. Magus," Rowan said. "Lucian told me all about the magic tricks you used to do when he was little."
Yes. He's had very strong magic in those days. And that all changed, of course, when I lost my wand."
"You lost your magic wand?"
"Sadly, yes, my dear. One day it was here, and next it was gone, and I've never been able to find it." Rowan said, "Can't you get a new one?" No, not really. My old one grew up with me, you see. A new one just wouldn't be the same, and not nearly as magical. Anyway, ones cost a lot of money, and we just can't afford it right now." Rowan said, "Yes, Lucian said something about that. He said you'd tell me the story." Mr. Magus looked at Lucian and sighed. "Yes, quite right too, young lady. I am the one to tell you the story, because, you see, it was all my fault." Rowan and Lucian settled down to listen, and Mr. Magus began. "In the old days there was no problem. The king had a wooden box full of gold and jewels and coins, so he was very rich. And in those days there were lots of servants, as well as Lucian and Ugron, so we were well protected. But when Lucian left and Ugron went to hide in the dungeons, the king was worried that someone might steal the treasure, so he asked me to hide it by magic. I did, and I cast a spell to make sure no one remembered where I had hidden it. But unfortunately the spell worked on me, too, and now I can't remember either. If we could only find it again, all our troubles would be over." "Can't you use another magic spell to find the treasure again?" Rowan asked. "Well, if I had my wand, I probably could, but, as I said, that has disappeared too. I can do very little magic now." Rowan said, "Is the treasure still in the castle?" "Oh, yes, I'm sure it is. But we have searched every room and the attics and the stables and the dungeons. There's no sign of it." Rowan said, "How big is this box of treasure?" "Well, it's not very big. It's heavy, of course, with all that gold inside it, but you could hide it in a cupboard. Though, of course, we've already searched every cupboard in the castle." Rowan said, "What about shelves? Could it be tucked away on a shelf somewhere?" Mr. Magus chuckled. "You are welcome to search, my dear, though I doubt you will be any more successful than we were." Lucian and Rowan went down the winding staircase to the castle ballroom, and Rowan looked around. "There are no shelves here, Lucian. Where do you find shelves in a castle?" Lucian said, "I would try the library. It's full of books, so there are shelves everywhere." They went up to the library. It was a huge room with wooden panelling, big brass candle holders fixed to the walls for when it got dark, and a thick, rather worn, red carpet. There were bookshelves all round, but they were filled with books and not treasure. Rowan said, "I don't suppose any of these books will help." Lucian agreed. "No, I doubt it. They are mostly old histories about the royal family." Rowan said, "Oh, here's one about the castle. Look, it's got a map of all the rooms." Lucian peered over her shoulder. "Why, yes, you're right. There's the front door and the ballroom, and on the next page it shows the dungeons and stable. See if you can find the one that shows this library." Rowan turned the pages, and Lucian said, "Stop there. Look, this is a map of where we are now. There is the window and the door and the big table in the middle, and it even shows the bookshelves." Rowan said, "Must have taken somebody ages to draw this. Look, it even shows all the candle holders." She studied the map and saw that one candle holder was marked with a little star. She said, "Lucian, why do you suppose that is?" Lucian said, "I've no idea. Maybe it's different from the others somehow. I can soon check. Which one is it?" Rowan looked at the map, then at the room, and she pointed. "It's that one on the side wall." Lucian walked over and looked up at it. "Well, I can't see anything special about this one." Rowan agreed. It was just an ordinary candle holder like all the others. And just to be sure, she reached up high and touched it. As she did, her fingers began to tingle, and she quickly let go. "Oh, that felt funny, Lucian," she said. But Lucian was not listening. He was looking in astonishment at a panel in the wall that had suddenly swung open.
It's a secret passage, Miss Rowan, he said. All those years I spent in this castle, and I never knew this was here. Can we go inside? Rowan asked. You can, Miss Rowan. I'm rather too big. Rowan squeezed through the panel and found herself in a tiny room. It had no windows, no carpet, nothing on the cold stone walls, but in the middle of the room there was an old table, and on the table was a very heavy wooden box. Rowan said, Lucian, I think we might have found the treasure, but I can't open the box, and it's much too heavy for me to lift. Look, I'll stay here with it. Can you go and get Mr. Magus, please? Lucian climbed up the winding stairs to the high tower and soon came back with the wizard beside him. Mr. Magus said, Well, I never. What a surprise. Rowan said, Is this the treasure? I do believe it may be. But let's open the box and see. I can't open it, Rowan said. I think it's locked. Mr. Magus tapped his nose. Locked with magic, my dear. But I think I have enough power left to open it. Let's see. He waved his hands over the box, and it began to glow, and then the lid popped open. It was filled with treasure. Gold and jewels and coins that sparkled and shone. Mr. Magus said, My goodness! Very well done, my dear. The King and Queen will be delighted. Let's take it to them at once. But Rowan said, It's too heavy to move. Not when you have a magician around, my dear. Even one as weak as I am now. He waved his hands again, and the treasure box floated into the air and out through the secret panel into the library. Mr. Magus lowered it carefully onto the library table, and Lucian came to take a closer look. But Rowan had found something else in the secret room, under the old table, something that looked like an old stick with a star on the end. She called, Mr. Magus, there's something else here. Come and see. Mr. Magus squeezed through the secret door and saw what Rowan had found. He gasped, and then he burst into tears. It's my wand! My best beautiful wand! Oh, now I can be a real wizard again! Oh, thank you, Miss Rowan, thank you. Everything will be all right now. And, of course, everything was. The King and Queen were rich, and Mr. Magus was as powerful as he had ever been. The princesses were happy too. Now we can have our grand dances again, said one. Indubitably, agreed the one with the fan, who liked using long words. Everyone was happy, and the Queen said, We owe you so many thanks, Lady Rowan. I am so pleased that you decided to accompany Lucian on his holiday. The King looked up. Holiday? Holiday. Yes, we haven't had a holiday for ages, and then now we can go wherever we like. I vote for the seaside. The Queen said, Yes, we always used to enjoy that, but I'm always sad when we have to come back to our empty old castle. The princesses agreed, and that gave Rowan an idea. Mr. Magus, she said, just how much magic can you do now? Mr. Magus said, More than ever, my dear. My wand has done nothing for years. It is fully charged. Why, did you have something spectacular in mind? Well, said Rowan, I don't know if it's possible, but do you think you could fly this castle over to where I live? We're very close to the sea, and the fairies would love it. Your castle would never be empty. The Queen said doubtfully, Surely that would be a task too great even for you, Magister Elevatus. The wizard thought for a moment, and he said, It would be difficult, Your Highness, but not, I think, impossible. The journey might take a few days, though. Everyone thought that was a brilliant idea, and the princesses rushed to start packing at once. Mr. Magus smiled. There's no need to pack. Everything will come with us just as it is.
Rowan thought she'd better warn everyone at home that the castle would be arriving, so she called Galloper and told him everything that had happened. "Lucian's staying with the castle," she said. "It will be a lot easier for him than flying back by himself. But I need to explain things to the fairies. Wouldn't they be surprised if a fairy castle suddenly turned up without warning? And we need to work out where to put it. It's much too big to fit in my garden." They chose a level, grassy field close to the sea, and a few days later Mr. Magus set the castle down without even a bump. All the fairies clustered round to see, and to meet the king and queen and princesses, and they were soon good friends. Rowan and the wizard went for a short walk together, and Rowan said, "That was awesome, Mr. Magus. You must be the most powerful wizard ever." Mr. Magus smiled. "Well, I do my best, you know. And thanks to you, Miss Rowan, my best is now good enough. But there is one thing bothering me." "What's that?" said Rowan. "Well, you have helped us so much, and I've done nothing in return." "Except bringing us a real fairy castle," Rowan said. "Oh, yes, but that was for all of us. I would like to do something special just to please you. Now, do you have a wish that I could grant?" Rowan thought hard. She had a beautiful home with Mummy and Daddy that loved her very much. She had a princess bed to sleep in and fairies to play with, and she was so close to the sea that it was almost like being on holiday all the time. She really couldn't think of anything else that she wanted. But then she had a lovely idea. "There is something," she said, "something I would like very much, but it's not for me." Mr. Magus looked puzzled. "Explain, please," he said. Rowan said, "It's Ogron. You know he lives here now, and we all love him, but he can't fly, and I really think he would like to. Can you help?" Mr. Magus thought. "A monster like him is far too heavy for wings, of course, so I would have to make him much lighter. I can't do that, but he would still be too big to play chasing. He'd get tangled in the trees and bushes. I could make him much smaller, of course, but then he wouldn't be so scary to any creature that frightened the fairies. Yes, it's an interesting problem." Rowan said, "Could you do it so that he can make himself big or small any time he wants to?" Mr. Magus nodded. "I'd never thought of that. Yes, there is no reason why not. And, of course, when he chooses to be small, he will be able to fly as well as any fairy. Yes, that is an admirable solution, my dear. Let's see what Ogron has to say." Ogron was, of course, delighted. Mr. Magus gave him a secret magic word that would make him as small as the fairies and allow him to fly. And if Ogron said the same word backwards, he'd go back to being a big, hairy monster. So now he could play chasing all over the sky and even join in on hide-and-seek, but he could still scare away anything that frightened his fairies. And as for the castle, all the fairies loved it, and it was never empty again.